But let's talk about the differences for just a second about, for example, the water softener. Water softeners would usually have a resin tank and a second tank, usually smaller, which would be the brine tank, into which you dump the sodium or potassium salts. Understand, however, the very important difference between the filtration tank with the Nature's Miracle Krystal Klear system, the filtration tank and the electronic descaler, versus a resin tank with a brine tank. With the brine tank and the resin tank and the water softener, the principle, remember, is called ion exchange. What they do is they exchange the hard water minerals, calcium and magnesium, for twice that amount of sodium chloride, or in the case of potassium, the exchange rate is 3-to-1, which means the minerals are exchanged for either sodium or potassium. They're not simply filtered out. The average homeowner doesn't really understand the concept of a water softener. The ion exchange water softener does not filter out calcium and magnesium or other hard water minerals. It simply exchanges them for salt. So the good news is no calcium or magnesium hard water scale buildup. The bad news is now you turn all the water in the house into salt water. When you do that, you have to compensate for drinking water. Most people don't like drinking or cooking with salt water, so you have to compensate with reverse osmosis or bottled water in order to get fresh water at least one point in the house for drinking and cooking. With our exclusive system of whole house filtration combined with the electronic descaler, we have better than bottled water quality at every faucet and shower in the house with no added chemicals. No sodium, no potassium or other chemicals, just clean, fresh water throughout the house. Because we don't have a brine discharge, we're environmentally safe and friendly in all states in the Union without any problems with brine discharge into effluents or water treatment plants. So compared to a water softener, this unit has no 40-pound bags of salt to lug home, no requirement for separate filtration for drinking water, and virtually no maintenance, since there are no moving parts in the electronic descaler and the filtration system backwashes automatically. Compared with other types of water conditioners besides the water softener, there are also whole house filtration systems that utilize strictly a carbon tank. Now, carbon for water filtration is available in two varieties. You can get granular activated carbon, which is the type we use in our system, or you can use a carbon block system. A carbon block is, just as the name implies, a solid piece of carbon, unidirectional, does not backwash, and has a limited lifespan, typically somewhere in the neighborhood of 6 to 18 months before the carbon block itself needs to be changed. With granular activated carbon, because of the backwash capability, we can extend the life many times that with the type of filtration that we use. Also, with a granular activated carbon tank that contains only carbon, there are two problems. Number one, the carbon flows all the way to the bottom of the tank, so that when water circulates in a downflow and then up the distributor tube, sediment is allowed to accumulate in the bottom of the tank. This results in decreased water flow into the house. The customer perceives this as a drop in water pressure, and then when the unit backwashes, assuming they have a system that does, the water pressure or the water flow will be restored. We prevent that problem with our unit by using a quartz bedding in the bottom that keeps sediment distributed evenly in the bottom of the tank between backwashes, ensuring a high flow rate. We also add the very important component of the KDF, that kinetic degradation fluxion, which is designed to not only prevent bacteriological contamination of the carbon. Once it has removed the chlorine and the other chemicals, the carbon itself actually becomes a food source for bacteria growth inside the tank. There are several ways of preventing that, but the most effective way, and the one that we use, is the KDF added media, because in addition to forming a bacteriostatic environment inside the tank, we're also able to filter out heavy metals. And as we said before, there can be up to a couple dozen different heavy metals in most water sources. Those can include things like lead, mercury, iron, copper, zinc, even trace amounts of arsenic, most of which are removed at the water treatment plant at the various locations, but then the water flows from that treatment plant to our homes, in some cases through miles and miles of underground plumbing distribution that in some cases can be 80, 90, even 100 years old. There are actual cases of tap water throughout the United States flowing through solid lead pipe cast iron pipe with lead solder, and so on, all of which contaminate the water once it leaves the treatment plant en route to our homes. The universally accepted way to prevent those problems is with an effective whole house filtration system at the point of entry to the house.